Hey everybody, welcome back to Our Liberty House. I am Lucas, and today is a very exciting day, the most exciting day for most gardeners. It's tomato and pepper planting day. We're going to be transplanting these into the garden finally, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to show you guys our garden plan and where we're going to put these in our garden and kind of the thought process about what goes into crop rotation, sun, and different things to maybe help you succeed in planting your garden for this planting season. Okay, before we give you an update on how the seedlings are doing and getting into planting, I want to give you guys a quick garden tour plan about where we're going to be planting. And if you're not familiar with our channel, if you're new here, we're in zone 9B and we plant in 6 raised beds that we've built, and we utilize really 4 trellises, 2 vertical trellises and then this arch trellis on both sides that we're really going to utilize to get into vertical gardening and maximize the space that we have. The first bed is one of our vertical trellises here, and last year we planted all pole beans across this, and so we had nitrogen fixing legumes. So this year we're going to take advantage of that, and we're going to plant some beefsteak tomatoes over here, some tomatillos, and then also some butternut squash. And then on this side, on the arch trellis, is all going to be tomatoes. This is going to be, we're calling it the year of the tomato. You've seen how many we've started. We're going to plant 6 tomatoes across each side, and hopefully they'll grow indeterminate tomatoes, vine all the way across the top of this. Really exciting. Last year we planted squash, some center cut squash and some butternut squash here. So we're going to mix it up, crop rotation, crop rotation, crop rotation. We're going to put tomatoes across this whole side and that whole side. Have like a tomato tunnel. It'll be really pretty, cool, and super productive. All right, and if you're following along, last year you remember our giant tomato wall that was in the back part of our yard on our vertical trellis, and it was all tomatoes and peppers, and we really sucked a lot of the nutrients out of that soil. So we find it super important to rotate crops. So we're not going to put any tomatoes or peppers back there again, and we'll go move to the back and show you guys what we're going to plant on that vertical trellis. So I've been talking a lot about crop rotation, and if it's not something you're familiar with, just do a simple internet search for vegetable crop rotation. You don't have to follow it exactly, but it's just something to keep in your mind. We feel that's important to not grow the same thing in the same place. And so, like I said, we grew tomatoes and peppers here. Fruiting plants are definitely going to be the most harsh in your soil and draw a lot of the nutrients out. If you're not familiar with how your soil's doing, or if you don't know, how your soil's doing, you can check out our video on how to get a very simple soil testing kit. We'll link it in the description here. And it's simple, it's really easy, and you guys can get a really good idea of how your soil's doing. If you don't have a big enough garden to do a true crop rotation, you just really have to be diligent about adding compost, adding organic fertilizers, and really building that soil health. But since we have such a big garden, we're able to rotate our crops. So back here this year, we are going to plant pole beans, some wax, like some yellow wax bush beans in front of that, and also some Armenian cucumbers. And so beans, legumes, they are considered nitrogen fixing plants. So they actually push nitrogen back into the soil. So we're going to really focus on that this back here this year. And then the cucumbers are kind of neutral feeders, moderate feeders. And we chose Armenian cucumbers this year. We've never grown them before. Since moving to Sacramento 3 years ago, we've really struggled to grow like a good harvest of cucumbers. Part of that was our soil was really bad when we first got it from one of the landscape supplies. And then just last year, we just have struggled to find a good cucumber for Sacramento. So if you're one of our local followers, drop us a comment about what kind of cucumbers you grow, because we really like them. So we're going to try the Armenians this year. They're supposed to be a lot more heat tolerant and don't get so bitter in our super dry, hot Sacramento summers. this video today is really just about the tomatoes and the peppers, but a lot of our other summer plants, it's still a little too early. So our zucchini squash, our butternut squash, even those beans and cucumbers will wait a couple weeks so it warms up. And in the meantime, in some of our open spots that we don't have anything planned for, we're going to plant some head lettuces, some spinach, some arugula, another round of radishes and beets before the summer heat really sets in, and it makes it almost impossible to grow that stuff in our climate. And we're also going to move over to our last bed, which is going to be our sweet pepper bed. All right, and the last bed we're going to talk about here is our newest bed to the garden. It gets really great morning sun, like all morning sun and afternoon shade. So we're going to plant all of our sweet peppers over here. Like I said, doing that crop rotation thing. We've never had anything super heavy feeding in this bed. So we're going to put sweet peppers. We'll get rid of the giant borage that we planted for the bees. It's a great early food source for your local bee population. But this will just be all sweet peppers. I don't really know how many we're going to fit in here yet, so we might have some space to do some other things as the summer goes on. Just kind of a trial bed. But this is going to be mainly our sweet pepper, little mini bells, some shishitos, and some Hungarian wax peppers and stuff like that. All right, update on our seedlings now. These are 9 weeks old. And they're ready to plant, and I'll flip the camera around and kind of show you, just a good update of what these 9-week-old tomato and peppers look like. Okay, as you can see, they're all quite large. I think they look really good. These tomatillos just keep growing vertically. And they've all been outside now for a couple weeks. And so they've been properly, hardened off or acclimatized to some cooler nights and some direct sunlight they get here in the morning, and they're ready to go in. These peppers have nice, strong stems. We probably could have split these, but just because of space and how many pots we have, we kept them in the same pot, and we'll split them when we plant them. And you can just see all of these tomatoes. So we're only going to plant about 15 or 16 of them. We'll have to look at our plan again, and then we'll give the rest away to family and different gardening friends in the area. Okay, so now's the time to pick out the plants that we want to keep for ourselves, and we'll start placing them in the garden, kind of where they're going to go, just so we can get an idea of how it looks, kind of final edit, if you will. And something to think, when's the right time to plant tomatoes and peppers. And a good rule of thumb is 60-degree soil temp. And if you don't have one of those Rio temp or different soil temperature gauges, an easier rule of thumb is 50-degree nights, 70-degree days will give you, on average, a 60-degree soil temp. But if you want to buy one of those soil temps, we'll link that in the description as well. They're good for your compost and also just for checking your soil temps before you plant to make sure you're kind of in the right area. So let's pick out plants and put them in the garden. One more tip, when you should transplant. Try to transplant early in the morning or late in the afternoon as the sun is setting. Don't fry these brand new transplanted, tomatoes and peppers with the direct sun heat of the day. So either choose a day that has cloud cover or try to do it early in the morning or late in the afternoon. Okay, time to transplant. And we're not going to bore you guys with transplanting everyone, but I wanted to go over, just some tips and tricks on how to properly plant a tomato when transplanting. So we dug our hole. And then we like to add a little fertilizer, even though we top dress with compost, which is going to have a lot of good, nutrients in it. We just like to start with a little bit of fertilizer. The directions for this down to earth is a 1/4 cup per hole for transplanting plants. And the reason we chose this, it's a 7-7-2. So that's the NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And I like to always say NPK is leaves, roots, and fruits. So 7-7-2. So when a plant's young, we don't really care about fruits. We want it to grow healthy roots and healthy leaves. So we want it to get tall and strong roots. So that's why you want to choose a 772. You can get Sure Star. There's a lot of different brands. So just look for something that is more for getting plants established rather than, a midsummer fertilizer that'll have a lot more potassium to help it fruit. And then we also are going to try this water-soluble mycorrhizal additive. Last year we did the granular. It worked great. We had a great year. So we're going to try the water-soluble one this year. And this is just a microbial additive that helps basically connect the root system, makes big, healthy roots. It just builds your soil life to connect across the whole ecosystem to absorb more nutrients. So we think this stuff is great. It's natural, organic. And then for the most important part. So here's one of our San Marzanos, one of our paste tomatoes. And what you want to do when you plant a tomato is plant it deep, right? Like I'll probably plant it like all the way down to here. Because as we've gone over in all the other videos, all of these little furs will help it grow roots, which absorb more nutrients, use less water, absorb more water. So if I can find them, use my little shears. And I'll just clip these off. I'm even going to clip this one off. All right. So we got our hole nice and deep. You don't really have to measure. It's not an exact science with organic fertilizer. You can't really burn them. I'm gonna add that in. Kind of want to mix it in, just a little bit. And then I like the Spock method. Flip it over. And you can see that's pretty great root growth. And that's, from bottom watering, for one, you can see all the roots are down at the bottom. And two, because when we up pot, we plant, we up pot them deep, just like we're going to plant them. So you don't really have to disturb the root ball too much because it's not root bound. Like these are still going to continue to grow out. So, right, pretty good. The soil line will be right about here once I backfill all this in with that nice fresh compost we put in. Just give it a nice pat down. And that's going to grow a nice, sturdy tomato plant. All right, easy as that. Beth and I are going to finish planting the rest of our however many tomatoes and tomatillos, and then we'll water them in with this water-soluble mycorrhiza, and we'll move on to the peppers. Okay, all the tomatoes are planted. Now we're going to move on to some peppers. And on this side of the yard, we're going to put some hot peppers. So we're going to plant 4 jalapenos in here and 3 Thai chilies. Those are the only hot peppers we're planting right now, just because they're the best functionality for us. So let's get those in. All right, we're going to split these off. You can see we'll plant them about an inch deeper than the crown of their roots. They're not like tomatoes where you can plant them super deep, but they will grow more roots off of just the base of their stem. So it's kind of the same thing here. Now these, like I said earlier, these could have benefited from being split and up pot earlier, but they'll be just fine. Should be just fine. You know, just splitting them into 2 plants like that. All right. This is a little bit more of a measuring game than the tomatoes. So that should work. Oops. And there's our little jalapeno friend. Okay, last bed is going to be like our sweet pepper bed. We just pulled the borage out. It was the biggest thing I've ever grown borage, flower wise, and it was covered in soldier beetles and ladybugs. So we just kind of laid it over to the side by the roses, hoping that they'd jump over there and eat the aphids off of that. To show you guys what we're planting for sweet peppers, we planted these same ones last year, just Hungarian wax peppers. They do get spicy if you let them ripen, or they're kind of sweet if you pick them young. These are the habanadas. They're the heatless habanero. 0 heat, sweet, tastes everything like the sweetness of a habanero without the heat. So we'll plant a couple of those. We planted those last year. They grow really slow. So just keep that in mind if you try them. And then we've got a whole bunch of shishito peppers, which are just great for sauteing and blistering in a pan. We planted the same variety last year that they just pumped them out. And then these are new to us, are these mini bell peppers. We got them in a seed exchange. Very excited. A lot of the full-size bell peppers, they underproduce or they get sunburned before they ripen. So I'm excited for these mini bells. Other than that, we're going to space them all out about, a foot apart. Peppers like to hold hands, so you can plant them kind of tight together. And we'll probably top a lot of these too. Just cut the top off and they'll branch out. We don't need to go over that today. That'll probably be in like a week or so to get really bushy pepper plants. So I'm excited. This bed has never really had anything for like a big summer producer for us. So it gets morning sun and afternoon shade. So excited to see how it goes. All right, everybody, that is a wrap for this seed update video. All the peppers, all the tomatoes are planted. And if always, hit that thumbs up button, give us a subscribe, check out the rest of our channel to see a lot of the seed updating. Next week, Beth will update you with a little garden tour, do our April garden tour, and then the week after that, we will finish up our seedling series here with getting our squash and cucumbers and beans into the beds. And then it's summer growing season. Thanks, guys.